Page 109, Chapter 7, title, Confederation and Constitution, two different words right there. Kinda that goes back to what we ended up talking about yesterday. Alright, now that our country's declared our independence and fought for our independence, and we won our independence. Yippee, yoo-hoo, we're our own country, right? We got a treaty to prove it, we got boundaries and everything, but of course, that means we're gonna have to set up our own system of government. That's what being independent means. We can't depend on Britain anymore. We have to set up our own system of government, and that's where the challenge came in, remember? If we were to set up a government and we give the government too much power, what would happen?
They would take away our freedom.
We would lose our freedoms, our own government. Someone or a group of people, whatever, someone in our government would become a tyrant and take away our freedom. But on the other hand, if we set up a government that's too weak, what will happen?
Other countries.
They're not gonna like when there's a war, they're not gonna know like what to do, and they're not gonna like.
And eventually some enemy of freedom, some outside force, would take away our freedom. So we would lose freedom if our government's too weak, lose freedom if our government's too strong. So that meant we needed to strike that perfect balance. Remember the challenge? A delicate balance to set up a government that is strong enough to defend our freedom, but not strong enough to become a tyrant and take away our freedom. And that's not easy. And that's why there's two words in the title of chapter 7, Confederation and Constitution. Confederation was our first try at setting up a government for our brand new country, and we failed. Alright, the second try is the Constitution. And not only did that not fail, the Constitution has been so successful that we're still using it today. Well over 200 years later, we're still using the exact same Constitution. And just so you know, it's the oldest system of government in the world. Every other country in the world has started a new system of government since we started using the Constitution. It's such a good idea that dozens of other countries around the world have copied our Constitution. Not word for word, but they've taken principles and ideas from it, setting up their country. It's the best idea mankind has ever come up with as far as a system of government. If you want people to live free, then the Constitution's the best idea ever. We're still using it. And we're gonna start tomorrow, we're gonna start talking about the Constitution in detail. And we're gonna spend weeks on it. But today, we're gonna talk about our first try at setting up a government. That's the Articles of Confederation. And remember, that's gonna be a failure. The Articles of Confederation. What that is it's an actual written document that outlines, spells out how we're gonna govern ourselves as a people. Now let me ask you right off the bat, on our first try, we already know it fails, but do you think our founding fathers, on their first try with the Articles of Confederation, do you think they set up a government that was too powerful or too weak?
Too weak.
Why would you think it was too weak? Based on what do you know?
Because they just got away from one that was too powerful.
Excellent. That's exactly right, Ethan. After what they've just been through, the tyranny of King George III, a way too powerful government, one thing they knew is we don't want anything to do with setting up our own government that's too powerful. So let's cut our founding fathers a little bit of slack, right? They messed up on their first try because they were so worried about a tyrannical government that they made a mistake and they set up our government a little bit too weak. Alright, so we're gonna talk about some of the problems under the Articles of Confederation today. We're not gonna spend a lot of time on it because it's no longer in effect. I mean, we need to learn about it, right? It's a historical document. That's part of our story as a people, but we're not gonna spend a lot of time on it, just this period. Constitution, by contrast, we're gonna spend a lot of periods on that. Alright, so here are some of the problems with the Articles of Confederation. One problem is to pass a law, and that's what governments do, right? To pass a law, you needed 9 out of 13 states to agree. And states all have different viewpoints on things. There's northern states and southern states, and states that had a lot of farms and not so many farms, and states that are warm weather and cold weather, and states that rely on slavery and states that didn't rely on slavery. And some states are large and some are small. The chances that 9 out of 13 would agree on the exact same law, not very good chance. So as a result, not a whole lot of laws are gonna get passed under the Articles of Confederation. Another problem, and this is an even bigger problem, we're gonna come back to this one at the end of the period. Another problem is to change the Articles of Confederation. By the way, we might wanna change our system of government from time to time, right? Change it up a little bit. Not change the whole system, but make a small change within our way we do things. Well, whenever we wanna do that, we have to follow the law. Starting tomorrow, you're gonna hear me say 1,000 times this year, cause I gotta beat it into your head, because there's a whole lot of Americans that don't understand this. We are a nation of laws, not men. We're a nation of laws. What I mean by that is whenever we don't know what to do next, we always know what to do next. You follow the law. Right? Whenever there's a question, you follow the law. And if you don't like the way the law is, well, then you take steps to change the law, right? And then you follow that one. We can change laws. Well, when it comes to the Articles of Confederation, that was the main law. To change it, well, you had to follow the law. You had to follow what the Articles of Confederation said of how to change it. And here's what it said. To change the Articles of Confederation, all 13 states had to agree on the exact same change. What are the chances all 13 states were gonna agree on anything? Basically no chance. So that's gonna prove to be a problem. Like I said, we'll come back to that at the end of the period. Here are some other problems with the Articles of Confederation. Another problem is our government could make laws, but we had no one in our government with the authority to enforce the law. Now I think even as an 8th grader, you can figure out what good is a law if there's no one to enforce it, right? You can say, well, this is the law, this is against the law, if you do this, this is the penalty. But what if no one can enforce that penalty? What if there's no one to arrest you or no one to punish you? Well, it might as well not be a law, right? So under the Articles of Confederation, our government had no one in authority. According to the Articles of Confederation, no one who could enforce the laws. That's too weak of a government, isn't it? Alright, here's another problem under the Articles of Confederation. Our government could not tax us. They couldn't even tax the states. Now, you know what taxes are, right? We talked about that earlier in the year. That's money that we earn as Americans, and then we pay part of it to the government. That's called taxes, and they do a lot of good things with our taxes. They make roads and bridges and city parks, and very importantly, they pay our military, and they get them weapons so that they can defend our freedom from enemies, right? Well, what if our government can't tax us? Well, then they wouldn't have any money to raise a military, and they wouldn't be able to defend us. Can you see why the Articles of Confederation was too weak of a government? They couldn't even tax. Now, they asked states to pay taxes, kind of like, hey, states, we need some government, could you pay some taxes? How do you think that went, right? So you can already see there's a lot of weaknesses with the Articles of Confederation. Setting up a government way too weak to defend our freedom. Now, before I tell you how it ends, I want you to look on page 112 and 113. Your book calls this some lasting achievements of the Articles of Confederation. In other words, these are 2 good laws that got passed. You'll see the word ordinance. the Northwest Ordinance of 1785, and on the next page, the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. Obviously, those are the years that these laws were made, and ordinance just means a law. Now, the Northwest, here's what that's referred to. New information here, so pay attention. The Northwest was talking about the northwest corner of our country, known as the Northwest Territory. So, looking at my map up here, where would the northwest part of our country be?
Up at the,
Mitchell?
Where Michigan is,
Yeah,
around there.
like around in here.
northwest.
Now, northwest, nowadays, we'd be talking about the states of Washington and Oregon, but that wasn't our country then, right? Our country then ended at the Mississippi, just the green. That's what the Treaty of Paris said, so the northwest corner would have been this area right here. Over here is the 13 states. But there was part of our country that wasn't part of any of the states. Well, then what was it? Northwest Territory. It's part of our country, just not a state, at least not yet. Now, we know that eventually, we're gonna take this Northwest Territory and divide it up into several new states, because we're not just 13 anymore, right? And the Northwest Territory ends up being Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, even a little bit of Minnesota, all comes out of the Northwest Territory. So, what did these laws do, these ordinances? They were referring to how we're gonna govern the Northwest Territory. We don't need to worry about how to govern Pennsylvania. The state of Pennsylvania decided that. How we're gonna govern New York, state of New York decided that. But how we're gonna govern this territory, the Northwest Territory, that's not really part of any state, but it is part of our country, it's gonna be under these two laws. Northwest Ordinance of 1785 and 1787, and they were both passed while our country was using the Articles of Confederation. So let's look at them one at a time. We're not gonna get into the details, just very briefly. The 1785 ordinance basically just surveyed out that whole territory, like divided it into sections and acres and stuff like that. Then the 1787 ordinance made some rules that will apply to that territory. For example, once a territory gets to a certain population, they could become a state and be added to the United States. And of course, we've done that, right? Several states there that we added out of the Northwest Territory. Also, there were two other very interesting rules with the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. In that Northwest Territory, one thing it did, it guaranteed religious freedom. And the second one's really interesting, it outlawed slavery. Slavery was not outlawed in the 13 states, but in the Northwest Territory it was outlawed based on that law. All right, now I want you to go to page 114 and flip the pages along with me really quickly. We're just gonna read the subheadings. Just the subheadings. While we were using the Articles of Confederation, which we already know set up a government that was way too weak, look what happens. Problems with Britain. Problems with France and the Netherlands. Problems with Spain. Discontent at where?
Home.
Discontent at home. In other words, even problems here in our own country. Our government was too weak to defend our freedom. So what are we gonna do? Well, this is an emergency. We gotta do something. Our country just got started and it's about to end. This experiment in freedom is about to come to an end. All because our system of government is too weak to defend our freedom. So we realized, the Americans alive then realized, this is an emergency. We gotta fix this. So we decided to have another big meeting of all the states. Once again, we're gonna meet in Philadelphia. So every single state, all 13 states, sent delegates up to Philadelphia or down to Philadelphia, wherever, to have a meeting and figure out how to fix the Articles of Confederation. That's what they were sent there to do. Fix the Articles of Confederation and make our government stronger. Not only do they meet in Philadelphia again, but they meet in the same room where they wrote the Declaration of Independence in 1776. And this time it's 1787. So think about it, that's 11 years later. Delegates from all 13 states meeting in the exact same room, but this time the emergency is the Articles of Confederation is too weak. We're gonna lose our freedom if we don't fix it. But remember what we said, one of the big problems with the Articles of Confederation is you needed all 13 states to agree on the change. All 13 states weren't gonna agree, were they? So after some arguments, one of the very first things they did that summer in 1787, those delegates said, all right, from now on, what happens in this room stays in this room. We can't fix the Articles of Confederation because we're never gonna agree on the changes. So let's just scrap it. Let's start over. Let's write up a whole new system of government. It's really no big deal. Even though we don't have the authority to do that because the people from our state sent us here to fix the Articles of Confederation, we know they're unfixable. It's no big deal if we write a new system of government because it's not like it's gonna take effect. It won't take effect until the people of our home states approve of it. So we might as well try it. Let's write a whole new system of government, and that system of government is called the US Constitution. And boy, did they ever nail it. We're still using it. All these years later. And we know it worked. I'll prove it. Do we still have freedom?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which means our government has been strong enough to defend our freedom. Has anyone ever tried to take it?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, lots of times. But they never been able to, whether it was Nazis or communists or terrorists or whoever. Our government is strong enough to defend our freedom. However, is there anyone in our government that's ever tried to take our freedom? Become tyrants? Yeah, in fact, I think that's happening right now. I think there's people within our government that wanna become tyrants and take away our freedoms. But they can't. Why can't they? Because the Constitution doesn't give them enough power. We struck that perfect balance. Our government is strong enough to defend our freedom, but there's no way anybody inside of our government can get enough power to become a tyrant and take away our freedom. Beautiful thing. Any questions on the Articles of Confederation? Like I said, tomorrow, we're gonna start in on the Constitution. Question, Ethan?
So technically, all 13 states did agree on one,
What'd they agree on?
the Constitution.
Well, yeah, right, but that wasn't a change to the Articles of Confederation.
Oh.
That's a whole new system of government.
Oh.
They're gonna write up a whole new document.
When they said all 13 states have to agree, do they mean all people in that state or
No,
one guy?
all the delegates from or the delegates from each of the states.
Okay.
Alright, so starting tomorrow, and then for many weeks, we're gonna talk about the Constitution. When we're finished, here's what I promise you. When we're finished, you will know more about the Constitution than most Americans. I didn't say most 8th graders. That's no contest. You'll know more than most Americans of any age. Right, because we're gonna look at it very, very carefully. Now, sadly, I can say this too. You're gonna know more about the Constitution than many, I can't say most, but than many college graduates. Because sadly, it's just not taught like it should be. I can even take it a step further. You're gonna know more about the Constitution, this is really sad, than, I can't say many, but some college graduates who majored in history. And you're still gonna know more about the Constitution. How bad is that, right? That's not saying how much we're gonna know, that kinda says how pathetic their education system is. That many colleges, even history majors, don't learn the basics of our Constitution, but you will. Right? You'll be a constitutional scholar, you'll be an expert on the Constitution when we're finished. And we're gonna start that tomorrow.